Under Lee's cold-eyed tutelage, Luna was forged into a weapon. Each morning, before dawn, she was roused from restless dreams and ushered into the sterile confines of the clinic's hidden wing, where Lee's carefully curated arsenal glinted under fluorescent lights. He fed her a steady diet of whispered lies, that the world had wronged her family, that only the strong could claim justice, that mercy was weakness. He drilled her finger on the trigger until her pulse matched the rhythmic recoil of the pistol. He taught her patience, how to fold anger into a steel core. With every calculated instruction, Luna felt her will wane as his took shape in her bones, and yet, beneath the veneer of obedience, a faint, furious spark gathered force. Late one night, after a session that left her trembling, she discovered, hidden under a loose floorboard, a battered photograph of her younger brother's broken car. The wreck that had shattered their lives and driven her mother to despair. Lee had orchestrated that crash, manipulating the chemical balance of the brakes so that Luna's family would come to him begging for help. She realized, in a moment of searing clarity, that she was no heroine in his grand design, but the final pawn. When he arrived to guide her through another training module, he found her face set in defiance rather than fear. He raised his voice, she raised her chin. She needed to break free, and she did. The corridor was dim when Luna slipped from her quarters, soaking in the antiseptic smell one last time. Behind her, Lee's silhouette loomed in the doorway, but she was already beyond reach. The city lights of Los Angeles tugged her forward, a promise of chaos to cloak her flight. She borrowed a uniform from a night shift orderly, her heartbeat thundering as she passed the watchful eyes of security cameras. By the time Lee realized she was gone, she was stepping out of a cab at the courthouse, her trembling fingers clutching a flash drive and a crumpled statement. Inside the packed courtroom, whispers erupted as the judge prepared to read Lee's sentence for conspiracy and coercion. Press photographers jostled for angles, news crews broadcast live. Luna rose from the rear bench and strode down the aisle in a borrowed blazer that did little to hide the scars on her arms. The bailiff called for order, but her voice cut through the murmurs. She pressed play on her phone, and the hush that followed was electric. From the small speaker came Lee's measured voice, instructing her on stance, breath control, and how to claim her life back with a bullet aimed at injustice itself. Every syllable was a confession, every inflection proof of his orchestration. Then she spoke, and her words pounded against the marble walls. I was his student. He made me a weapon. This is the truth. The courtroom exploded. Gasps punctuated her every sentence as she detailed how Lee had supplied weapons, falsified documents, and engineered panic to turn her into a living threat. She handed the judge the flash drive, and Lee's eyes, once so composed, flickered with panic. His attorney pounded the bench, demanding an evidentiary review, but Luna produced another bombshell. A sworn affidavit in her own hand, attesting that every instruction she had followed came directly from Lee's lips. The district attorney rose, voice steady but urgent. What we have here is a criminal mastermind who turned a vulnerable young woman into a tool for violence. The evidence is irrefutable. As cameras flashed like artillery, Lee's face drained of color. Outside the courthouse, the city was ablaze with speculation. News helicopters hovered overhead, streaming Luna's testimony to millions. Talk radio hosts replayed Lee's recorded voice, dissecting every phrase. Social media erupted in hashtags, #LeExposed, #LunaSpeaks, #Justice, orchestrating trending topics that made even the most hardened speculators pause. At a downtown vigil, Luna's supporters lit candles beneath a makeshift mural of her determined face. They chanted her name, a chorus of solidarity that reverberated through downtown's glass towers. Meanwhile, in the courthouse basement, Lee was served with new indictments: attempted murder, kidnapping, racketeering. Prosecutors threatened to seek life without parole if the jury accepted Luna's account. In the days that followed, Luna became both icon and target. Editors begged for exclusive interviews, late-night hosts begged for sound bites. Some hailed her bravery, others questioned her motives. Was she a runaway lover spurned? A disillusioned prodigy? But Luna remained silent, guarded. She knew that every word she uttered could tip the scales of justice. Her only comfort was the growing evidence: Lee's cell phone logs, clandestine security footage, witness statements from other clinic detainees who spoke of brainwashing sessions and threats of violence. With each revelation, Lee's fortress of denial crumbled. Yet for all the public drama, a private reckoning gnawed at Luna's soul. She spent restless nights in protective custody, staring at the ceiling of her cell, haunted by the gunmetal cold of Lee's instructions. She had traded innocence for a confession that saved countless lives, but at what cost to her own peace of mind? On lawyers' advice, she refused to discuss her future until after Lee's trial, but she confided, on tape, that she feared becoming a perpetual pawn in the headlines. Her statement concluded with a single plea: let the law decide who I am. Don't let the cameras become my judge. At press conferences, the district attorney stood flanked by LPD brass, detailing the mounting case against Lee. They displayed the flash drive in an evidence bag, its metallic sheen gleaming under the spotlights. Behind them, photos of Luna's training sessions, blurred, grainy, like frames from a nightmare, lent a stark gravity to their words. This is unprecedented, the chief prosecutor intoned. We have never before seen such deliberate psychological conditioning for criminal ends. If convicted, Mr. Lee will face the maximum penalty. The courtroom sketch artists sketched Lee's haggard form. Pundits speculated on potential plea bargains. Meanwhile, Luna's mother, fragile and worn, issued a statement through her attorney: "My daughter has endured horrors we never imagined. She has shown courage beyond measure. I ask that her privacy be respected as she rebuilds her life." Her words were tender, pleading, but they did little to quell the tabloids' demands. Paparazzi camped outside Luna's safe house, lenses trained on the windows. A legal hearing was set for August 1st, and the city braced for another round of revelations. As the sun set on Los Angeles, casting golden light across the skyscrapers, Luna sat alone in a small room, her gaze fixed on a blank notebook. The page was empty, awaiting her story. She tapped the tip of her pen against her lip, contemplating whether she would ever write again, or simply let the courts write her destiny. One thing was certain: she had broken Lee's hold, and with it, the city had glimpsed the dark possibilities of manipulation unchecked. Now, as the trial approached, LA held its breath. Would Lee's life sentence stand, or would a loophole consign Luna's truth to a footnote? In the hush before the storm, only the silent pages knew the answer. Under Lee's calculated guidance, Luna had become more than a reluctant pupil. She was a living instrument of his dark designs, molded in the shadows of his clandestine clinic. Each dawn found her before a mirror of steel and glass, the pistol's cold weight pressing reality into her palm as she practiced Lee's exacting instructions on breath control, trigger discipline, and the clinical detachment required to end a life without hesitation. Lee had spun a tapestry of lies around her shattered heart. Promises of retribution for the accident that had claimed her brother, assurances that only the strongest could right the world's wrongs, and soothing whispers that the ends justified the means. Deceived and isolated, Luna had surrendered her agency until a buried spark of defiance ignited the moment she uncovered evidence that the catastrophic brake failure which wrecked her family's car had been orchestrated by Lee himself, ensuring their desperation and securing her loyalty. In that instant, the weapon she had become turned inward, and the shell of obedience cracked. Under cover of night, She slipped from the clinic in an orderly's uniform she had pilfered, a flash drive and a crumpled affidavit pressed against her chest. The city's neon veins pulsed as she rode a rattling cab to the courthouse steps, the air thick with the scent of gasoline and distant sirens. Inside the packed chamber, where Lee awaited sentencing for conspiracy and coercion, Luna stood in borrowed shoes, her palms slick with sweat. When the judge's gavel threatened to punctuate the final chapter of Lee's crimes, she rose, the courtroom's murmurs quaking into silence as she pressed play on her phone. Lee's voice, calm and measured, spilled through the speakers, explicit coaching on stance, breath control, and the mechanics of murder. Each word cut like a scalpel, exposing the mastermind behind a conspiracy that reached far beyond a single bullet. She stepped forward, voice unwavering. I was his student, his instrument. He taught me to pull this trigger. I refuse to be his pawn any longer. Cameras flashed, attorneys gasped, and Lee's composed facade fractured into panic. Luna handed the judge the flash drive and her signed statement, her confession laying bare every facet of Lee's manipulation. Supplying weapons, engineering fear, and fabricating evidence to shatter lives. As Lee's attorneys scrambled for objections, the district attorney rose, voice resonant. What we witness here is not merely a criminal network, but the exploitation of a vulnerable young woman for violent ends. The evidence is irrefutable. Security footage from the clinic, cell phone logs, and witness testimonies from former detainees coalesced into an unassailable mosaic of guilt. The courtroom fell into a charged hush as a hush of reporters scribbled furiously. Outside, helicopters hovered, broadcasting Luna's revelation live, while social media erupted in solidarity and outrage under hashtags that trended citywide. Candlelight vigils sprouted beneath makeshift murals of Luna's determined face, the collective pulse of LA echoing her plea for justice. Meanwhile, Lee faced fresh indictments, attempted murder, kidnapping, racketeering. With prosecutors vowing to seek life without parole should the jury accept Luna's account. Caught between the glare of publicity and the gravity of her testimony, Luna retreated to protective custody. Editors and talk show hosts clamored for exclusives, but she remained resolute. Her only solace came from mounting evidence, Lee's encrypted files, clandestine recordings of his brainwashing sessions, and corroborations from others who had suffered under his chilling regimen. With each revelation, Lee's denials rang hollow, his attorney's objections stifled by the weight of incontrovertible proof. Yet in the stillness of her cell, Luna grappled with the cost of her confession, trading her silence for the chance to spare others from Lee's reach, all while fearing she might become a permanent fixture in headlines. She inscribed a final plea on camera, "Let the law determine my fate. Don't let the spectacle define me." Just as Luna's testimony seemed to seal Lee's downfall, another shockwave ripped through the proceedings. Finn, Lee's son and once the clinic's esteemed physician, took the stand with a pallor deeper than any surgical mask. His voice, usually steady in the operating theater, trembled as he recounted his journey from dutiful son to disillusioned witness. He painted a portrait not of maternal care but of obsessive control. Lee had never forgiven him for rejecting her dominion. His choice to build a career untainted by her shadow was, in her eyes, a betrayal demanding correction. He revealed that Lee's scheme to have Luna shoot Steffi, Finn's beloved wife, was not random brutality, but the first step in a calculated campaign to destroy their marriage and drag Finn back into the suffocating safety of her influence. According to Finn, Lee had anticipated that the shock of his wife's near, fatal injury would leave him vulnerable, a broken man longing for his mother's guidance. Each recorded session, each silent threat, and each act of coercion had been orchestrated to fracture his loyalties and pull him into Lee's orbit once more. The courtroom reacted in stunned silence, then murmurs swelled into a roar. Finn's testimony laid bare Lee's true motive. A mother's twisted love that saw her son's independence as a disobedience demanding retribution. He described how the shooting of Steffi was meant to be a crucible, one that would burn away his resolve and force him to flee back to the one person who claimed to understand his pain. He spoke of Lee's meticulous planning, altering Steffi's medication, engineering her late-night coffee run, and timing the bullet to graze without killing, all to maximize the psychological toll. His words painted Lee not merely as a mastermind of violence, but as a puppeteer who viewed her own child as a plaything in her quest for absolute loyalty. As Finn concluded, tears glistened in his eyes, and even Lee's staunchest supporters fell silent, unable to reconcile the loving matriarch they professed to know with the architect of familial destruction. In the aftermath, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. Panels dissected the mother-son dynamic, legal analysts debated charges of elder coercion alongside attempted murder, and public opinion swung like a pendulum between sympathy for Luna and heartbreak for Finn. At a press conference, the district attorney displayed the flash drive, the signed affidavit, and Finn's tear-stained statement, asserting, "We have uncovered a crime so calculated it weaponized the bonds of family." Lee's counsel hinted at claims of mental coercion and emotional duress, but the mounting array of video and audio evidence rendered such defenses precarious. Outside the courthouse, supporters of Luna and Finn gathered on opposite sides, each group chanting for vindication. Paparazzi circled like vultures, eager for the slightest glimpse of the embattled family, while show hosts speculated on whether Lee would accept a plea or face a jury determined to deliver the maximum sentence. Behind closed doors, Luna reflected on the unexpected solidarity she found in Finn's testimony, two survivors bound by Lee's betrayal, each giving voice to her crimes in complementary testimony. Finn, once proud to follow in Lee's footsteps, now confronted the terrible inheritance of her ambition. He spent nights poring over case files, searching for every shred of evidence that could tip the scales, while Luna rehearsed her cross-examination of Lee, determined to expose not just his actions, but the twisted psychology that had fueled them. Outside, lawyers prepared motions for a consolidated trial that would consider Lee's crimes against Luna, Steffi, and the medical profession she had tainted with her corruption. As the calendared trial date approached, August 1st, Los Angeles braced for one final act of this macabre drama. Public opinion polls showed overwhelming support for Luna and Finn, yet speculation abounded about potential revelations Lee might yet unveil. Would the jury believe a young woman coerced under duress? Could a son's betrayal of a mother sway their hearts? And in the hush before opening statements, one question lingered. Had Lee's manipulations reached deeper than anyone suspected, or would the combined testimony of Luna and Finn be enough to consign her to a fate void of parole? In the twilight hush of the city, where ambition and betrayal intertwine, the truth awaited its final reckoning, or its most devastating twist yet.